In the heart of a small, seemingly peaceful town, there lived a woman named Clara. Her life was as ordinary as any other, filled with the daily routines that form the unremarkable tapestry of suburban existence. However, everything changed the day she encountered him. It was a chilly autumn morning when Clara first saw the man who would disrupt her life. She was at the local coffee shop, a cozy little place she frequented every morning before work. The man entered, and immediately a sense of unease washed over her. There was something about his presence that felt overwhelmingly intrusive, as if he had forcefully entered not just the coffee shop, but her very thoughts. His face was oddly familiar, yet Clara was certain she had never seen him before. It was an unsettling contradiction. His eyes, dark and penetrating, seemed to hold a depth of knowledge about her that she couldn't fathom. And his smile, oh, that smile, it was as if it knew secrets about her life that she herself was unaware of. In the days that followed, Clara's initial discomfort turned into an obsession. She saw him everywhere, at the grocery store, the library, even passing by her house late at night. It was as if he was haunting her, a ghost only she could see. Despite the logical part of her brain telling her it was all a series of coincidences, she couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something more sinister at play. Clara decided to confide in her best friend, Emily, who suggested that perhaps this man was a lost love from a past life, or maybe someone who harbored a vendetta against her for reasons unknown. They laughed it off over coffee, trying to make light of the situation, but Clara's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Deep down, she feared this was no laughing matter. Determined to confront her fears, Clara followed the man one evening. She watched as he walked with a purposeful stride towards the old part of town, where the streets were lined with buildings so ancient they seemed to whisper stories of the past. He entered an old, dilapidated house that Clara had always thought was abandoned. Her curiosity getting the better of her, Clara approached the house, her heart pounding in her chest. The front door was slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under her weight. The house was dark, save for a faint light coming from the basement. As she made her way towards the light, Clara could hear whispers in the shadows, voices that seemed to be calling out to her. She reached the basement door, and with a trembling hand, she pushed it open. What she saw inside would change everything. The room was filled with photographs, thousands of them, covering the walls from floor to ceiling, and they were all of her. Every moment of her life, captured in meticulous detail, from her childhood to her adult life. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the extent of the man's obsession. But just as she was about to turn and run, she heard the door behind her close with a definitive thud. She spun around to find him standing there, the man with the unsettling smile. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice eerily calm. "It's time for you to know the truth." Clara's heart raced as she faced the man, her mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. His smile widened, as if he relished her terror. "You're wondering why, aren't you?" he asked, his voice a sinister whisper in the dimly lit basement. "Why you? Why all of this?" She wanted to run, to scream, but her feet were rooted to the spot, her voice trapped in her throat. The photographs on the wall seemed to mock her, each snapshot a moment of her life she thought was private, now exposed and laid bare by this stranger's obsession. "I've watched you for a long time, Clara," he continued, taking a step closer. The light flickered, casting shadows that danced across his face, giving him an even more menacing appearance. "You think your life is ordinary, but you're far from it. You're special, Clara, and not just to me. His words sent a shiver down her spine. How could her mundane life be of any interest to someone? And what did he mean by special? Clara found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" He chuckled, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the room. "It's not what I want, Clara. It's what you can do for us." Us? The question escaped her lips before she could stop it. The notion that there were others involved was even more terrifying. Before he could answer, a sudden crash from upstairs jolted them both. The man's expression darkened, a mix of anger and fear briefly crossing his features. "They're here," he hissed, turning towards the stairs. "Who's here?" Clara demanded, panic rising in her chest. He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed her arm, pulling her towards a hidden door at the back of the basement she hadn't noticed before. "You need to hide, now." Despite every instinct screaming at her to flee from him, the urgency in his voice and the sounds of chaos from above compelled her to follow. He ushered her into a small, dark space, barely large enough for her to crouch in. "Stay here and don't make a sound," he instructed, his voice suddenly gentle. "I'll come for you when it's safe." As he closed the door, plunging her into darkness, Clara heard the sounds of a struggle from the basement. Muffled voices, thuds, and something worse, a chilling, inhuman screech that seemed to scrape at her very soul. Trapped in the darkness, Clara's mind raced. Who were they? Why was this man, who had been stalking her, now trying to protect her? And what did they want with her? The fight seemed to go on forever, the noise a terrifying cacophony that made her heart pound in her ears. Then, as suddenly as it began, there was silence. Clara strained to hear anything, a footstep, a whisper, anything to indicate what was happening outside her hiding place. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours, Clara couldn't tell. The silence stretched on, becoming as oppressive as the darkness surrounding her. Just as she was about to risk opening the door, a faint scraping sound made her freeze. Something was moving outside. Slow, deliberate steps approached the hidden door. Clara held her breath, praying to remain undiscovered. Then a voice, not the man's, whispered through the sliver of space between the door and the frame. "Clara, we know you're in there, and we know exactly what you are capable of." The whisper at the door was a harbinger of a truth darker than Clara had ever imagined. The voice, chilling and otherworldly, seemed to seep into the very marrow of her bones. She realized then that her life had always been a prelude to this moment, a journey shadowed by entities unseen and forces beyond her understanding. As the door slowly creaked open, a sliver of light revealed the silhouette of a figure, its features obscured by the darkness. The air grew cold, a palpable sense of dread filling the small space. "Who are you?" Clara managed to whisper, her voice trembling. "We are the Watchers, the Guardians of the Veil," the figure replied, its voice a mosaic of whispers. "And you, Clara, are one of the keys." The realization struck Clara with the force of a physical blow. Her entire life, every moment she had lived, had been under their surveillance, not for malice but for purpose. She was integral to a cosmic balance she could scarcely comprehend. "Why me?" she asked, a mix of fear and defiance in her voice. "Because you were born with the sight, the ability to see beyond the veil that separates worlds. You can perceive the threads that bind the fabric of reality," the figure explained, stepping into the light. Its form was humanoid but ethereal, its features shifting as if made of smoke and shadow. The man who had stalked her, who had brought her here, had been a sentinel, tasked with watching over her until the time was right. But something had gone wrong. Forces that sought to unravel the threads of reality had become aware of Clara's potential. had come to claim her power for their own dark purposes. The struggle Clara had heard was between the Sentinel and these beings, a battle to protect her until she could fulfill her destiny. "He sacrificed himself to give us time," the figure said solemnly. "Now, you must decide. Will you stand with us, Clara? Will you use your sight to mend the veil?" The weight of the choice pressed down on her. To embrace her destiny meant stepping into a world of shadows and light, of battles unseen by mortal eyes. It meant leaving behind everything she knew. But the alternative was far worse. Without her, the fabric of reality would fray and tear, unleashing chaos upon all worlds. With a resolve born of understanding her place in the cosmos, Clara nodded. "I'll stand with you. Tell me what I need to do." The figure extended a hand made of mist and starlight. "Together we will restore the balance. But be warned, the path is perilous, and the forces arrayed against us are legion. Your journey begins now, Clara, into the darkness and beyond." As she took the figure's hand, the basement around them dissolved, revealing a realm of endless twilight. Ahead, a rift in the fabric of reality pulsed with dark energy, the tear that she was destined to mend. The story doesn't end, it transforms. Clara steps forward, not as a victim of her circumstances, but as a guardian of the veil. The darkness ahead is vast and filled with terrors, but also with hope. For in the heart of darkness there is always light, and Clara, with her newfound allies, is ready to fight to ensure that light prevails. Her journey into the unknown has only just begun, a tale of courage and sacrifice in the face of overwhelming darkness. And though the path is fraught with danger, Clara walks it with the certainty of one who knows that some lights can never be extinguished, no matter how dark the end may seem. Thank you for listening to my channel.